Hey, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of Living My Truth with Shonnie. If you're new here, welcome to the space where we unpack the real, the raw, and the redemptive. And if you've been here walking with me through the highs and the hell, thank you for staying. Thank you for making this space what it is. Thank you for reminding me that every single time I show up behind this mic that this truth, our truth, matters. But before we get started, guess what? I wrote a book, and it is now available on Amazon for purchase. My book, A Strength for Men, a prayer book for guidance, wisdom, and faith, was created for men who carry so much but rarely have a place to lay it all down. So whether you're battling silent struggles or seeking direction or just needing a deeper connection from God, the prayers in my book will meet you right where you are. This is more than just a book. It's a tool to help men release their burdens, strengthen their faith, and step into the purpose that they were created for. Inside, you'll find powerful prayers for faith, clarity, strength, and perseverance, prayers for relationships, finances, purpose, and growth. And there's also a note page after every prayer to reflect and make each one personal. And you will also have access to 20 additional note pages at the end for deeper journaling and spiritual growth. So make sure you grab a copy for yourself or for the man and the men in your life. I'll link it in the description for this episode. And if you follow me on social media, you can always find the link in my bio. So with that being said, let's jump into this episode. This episode is called Where Fear Ends, I Begin. And I don't take that title lightly because that's exactly where I'm standing right now. At the line between fear and faith, between what I've known and what I'm stepping into. And it's unfamiliar. It's stretching me, but it's also awakening me something in me that survival tried so hard to bury. So let me go ahead and say this up front. It's not light, but this is an episode that you may have to come back to time and time again for a reminder, because this fear that I'm walking through right now, it's not loud. It's quiet, but it's constant. It's the kind that shows up in the silence. And I'm not talking about the peaceful kind of silence either. I'm talking about the silence where my mind starts to disrespect me. Moments where everything around me is still, but my thoughts are still screaming, telling me I should have never made it, reminding me of who left, who hurt me, what I lost, and what I lacked. Whispering lies that say, see, that's why you'll never get to where you're going. It's like my past tries to rewrite my future when I'm not paying attention. And suddenly, it doesn't matter how far I've come, I feel stuck all over again. I looked in the mirror the other day, eyes swollen from crying, heart heavy from doubting, and I said out loud, you don't have to go back there. You're not hurt anymore. And the way my reflection stared back, like she was waiting for me to finally believe it, that moment, it wrecked me, because I realized the only person that I still needed permission from was myself. So I stood there staring at myself like a stranger. Like I had to reintroduce myself to the woman that I've become, the woman who survived, the woman who healed, the woman who still flinches when things feel too good, because for so long, the good never lasted. And in that moment, I realized I trust God, but I'm still learning how to trust this version of me, this version of the woman that I become, the one who no longer performs for love, but still sometimes questions if she's worthy of it. The one who prays bold prayers but whispers her dreams. The one who carries strength like armor, but underneath it all, she just wants to feel safe. And not the safe that comes from avoiding things, but the kind that comes from knowing that even if it all falls apart again, I won't. And the wildest part, nobody would even know, because I've mastered the smile, okay? I've learned how to say I'm good like it's a reflex, but deep down, I'm still checking the door to make sure I'm not trapped in old patterns. And y'all, I know that I'm not the only person who feels like this sometimes. So if you've been asking yourself, what now? if you've been stepping into new territory, but your knees are shaking, if you've made peace with your past, but you don't know how to handle the promise, sit with me in this, because I'm living in the middle of it right now, not looking back with hindsight, not storytelling from a healed place. I'm in it, present, tender, truthful. So here's what's real. I've done the work. I've cried the tears. I faced the memories I used to avoid. I've broken soul ties. I've walked away from jobs, friendships, relationships, patterns, anything that didn't reflect the healed version of me that I'm trying to protect now. And even after all of that, even after I stopped apologizing for my voice, after I stopped shrinking in rooms that I was meant to lead in, even after I started loving myself in ways I've never experienced growing up, I still find myself asking, what now? And I don't mean it lightly. I mean it with trembling hands. I mean it when I'm laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. I mean it when I'm smiling at blessings I prayed for, but feeling a lump in my throat because receiving something good still feels like a setup. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. I know that. I've quoted it. I've declared it. But let me be real. Sometimes fear still pulls up like it paid rent. Like it's entitled to stay just because it's been around for so long. And that's where faith has to rise louder than logic. Because logic will say, be careful. But faith says, be bold. So I whispered a prayer. Nothing fancy. Just a moment between me and God. Like, God, I'm scared. I know you brought me here, but what if I mess this up? What if I lose it? What if I'm not ready? And in that silence, I didn't hear a shout. I didn't get a sign. I just felt peace. Like God saying, you are ready and I'm still with you. And y'all, that quiet peace, that's what I've been learning to trust. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of God in spite of it. See, nobody really talks about what happens after the breakthrough. We talk a lot about getting out. We talk a lot about leaving the job, leaving the relationship, leaving the old version of us behind. But what happens when we get out and the silence hits? What happens when the noise dies down and all that's left is you and the dream that you said you were ready for? It's beautiful, but it's also terrifying because now you've got to build. Now you've got to trust yourself in new ways. Now you've got to believe that you're not just lucky, you're equipped and that you're built for this. You've got to stop bracing for the worst and start preparing for abundance. And if I'm being honest, for me, that's not easy because I've spent most of my life surviving, waiting for the next letdown, anticipating the betrayal, learning how to rebuild every time the rug got pulled out from under me. So when life gives me a firm foundation now, I get suspicious. I overthink the peace. I second guess the love. I triple check the success as if I didn't already work my butt off for it. But deep down, I know this fear that I feel is not a red flag. It's a sign that I'm growing. It's a sign that I'm standing at the threshold of something sacred, something I've never seen before, something I've never been given before, something that I'm not just walking into, but something that I'm called to own. And that's what I want you to hear today. You don't have to apologize for stepping into something better. You don't have to dim your light just because the version of you that was so used to darkness is still learning how to feel safe in the sun. Let her adjust. Let her flinch. Let her cry when she realizes that she doesn't have to fight anymore. Let her weep in the presence of the peace that she used to pray for. Let her feel awkward, even scared about receiving softness because her heart has never been held like this before. But don't let her stop you from stepping forward. Because here's the truth. You didn't do all of this healing just to go back to who you were pretending to be. You didn't survive everything you survived just to have fear have the final say. You are not the same woman who once questioned her worth because of who didn't show up. You are not here by accident. You did not stumble into this version of yourself. You've earned her. You've prayed for her. You fought through the dark for her. You are not the little girl who begged for love in empty rooms. You are not the wounded version of yourself who used to shrink in silence and call it peace. You are evolving. And that evolution is uncomfortable. It means waking up some days and not recognizing yourself, but still choosing to show up anyway. It means walking into rooms that you used to pray to get into and reminding yourself that you belong there, even if your voice shakes when you speak. It means learning how to rest, not because you're exhausted, but because you deserve to. And yes, it's scary because sometimes abundance feels like pressure. Sometimes answered prayers feel like responsibility. Sometimes the dream feels bigger than your capacity. But what if it's not? What if it's the dream that fits you perfectly? What if everything you've asked for has been waiting for you to believe that you are worthy of it? What if this version of your life isn't a test, but a gift? And you don't have to earn it by struggling your way through it. You just have to receive it. Let that be your work in this season. Not striving, not performing, but receiving. Receiving without resistance, without shrinking, without apologizing for how much it costs to finally be here. So if you're listening to this right now and you're feeling that same tension, if you finally made it to a place where things are calm, but your heart is still racing, your mind is still spiraling out of control, your fear is still whispering, I want you to know that nothing's wrong with you. You're just adjusting. You're breathing in a different altitude. You're learning what it feels like to be safe for real this time. And that takes time. So don't rush it. Don't shame yourself for needing space to settle. Don't call it sabotage when really it's just unfamiliar. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not ungrateful for feeling unsure in a season that looks like a blessing. You are becoming. And that becoming, it's holy, it's messy, it's layered, but it's sacred. So give yourself grace. Give yourself softness. Give yourself permission to take up space in the life that you've asked for. And when fear comes knocking, you let it know. I've made peace with my past. I'm aligned with my present. And I'm no longer scared of my future. Because what now? Now I walk. Now I stretch. Now I rest without guilt. Now I build without begging. Now I show up without shrinking. Now I live like I've already won because I have. And if that makes people uncomfortable, let it. Because your peace is not up for debate. Your promise is not up for negotiation. You're finally living in what almost didn't survive. So stand on it. Own it. And before I go, let me say this loud for the ones still whispering to themselves. I don't owe fear an explanation. I don't owe doubt a seat at the table. I don't owe my past another replay. I owe myself this life. And baby, I'm showing up, scars and all. If this episode spoke to you, if it stirred something in your spirit, if you saw yourself in this, I want you to do me a favor. Don't just keep this to yourself. Pass the healing forward. Share it with someone still stuck in survival. Someone who's still learning how to breathe easy in a room that they no longer have to fight to stay in. Like it, share it, comment, and leave a review. It helps this podcast to grow. It helps me to keep showing up. But most importantly, it might help someone else feel seen too. So thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up, for living your truth, even when it's hard. And if today is one of those days where fear still feels heavier than faith, I want you to remember the fact that you're still here, still healing, still hoping. That's proof that you've already won. So until next time, keep living your truth.